Hello, everyone. My name is Mauro Guillen, and I'm the director of the Joseph H. Lauder Institute of Management and International Studies. As you know, the Institute offers a joint degree program with the Penn Graduate School of Arts and Sciences that combines either the Wharton MBA or the JD from the Penn Law School. As you know, the students at Lauder get a MA degree in International Studies, and I would like to share with you some details about how the program works. The students arrive on campus in May, and they take some classes during that month, and after that, they go into summer immersion for 2 months, which is one of the highlights of the program. The program also includes a number of core classes that all Lauder students, regardless of their program of concentration, have to take, including international political economy and global and regional analysis. Students have to choose one program of concentration, and you actually make that decision when you apply for the program. We have a global program for people who are already proficient in a foreign language other than English, and we have 5 regional programs: Europe, Africa, East Asia and South Asia, the Middle East and North Africa and South Asia, and finally Europe. In each of these programs, we support several languages. The summer immersion, as I told you earlier, is perhaps the highlight of the program. You will spend 5 weeks learning languages, unless you're in the global program. And then the other 3 weeks you will spend with the other students in the regional program. We have a large network of alums, nearly 2,000, that are working in as many as 60 or 70 different countries around the world. We're very much focused on ensuring that you will achieve your career goals. We have a dedicated staff person to help you secure internships and also full-time jobs. And our students, our graduates, now work for some of the most important corporations in the world. For example, Roy Hiray is the CEO of Alcoa, Aluminum Corporation of America, and Rosana Ramos Velita is the founder and chairman of Caja Rural de los Andes, a social enterprise in Peru. We also have many graduates who have founded or launched other types of companies, and people who work in consulting, in marketing positions, in technology companies, and on and on and on. Perhaps the single most important 2 words that you need to know about the program are Lauder love. Our alums sign their emails to one another with these 2 words at the bottom. This is one way of conveying to you that the Lauder program really is an extended family. Everybody knows everyone else by name, and it is a program that is sufficiently small to offer you a personalized approach to international studies and to business. But at the same time, of course, you can take advantage of the scale and the scope of the Wharton School if you enroll in the MBA program there, or the Penn Law School if you're pursuing a JD. Keep in mind that we have 2 rounds of application. One closes in September and the other one in January. And in addition to the materials that you have to submit for the Wharton application, you also need to write an essay for your Lauder application. Plus, you need to test, you need to take your language proficiency. You need to take the oral proficiency interview, or OPI language test. You also have to go through a Lauder interview. And finally, I would like to bring to your attention that at the Lauder Institute, we have an extensive program for financial aid. We provide financial aid both towards the MA tuition and the MBA or JD tuition. I'd like to also emphasize here, what is it that you should focus on in terms of preparing your application? First and foremost, you need to tell us about your language skills and about your international experiences, whatever it is that you've done of an intercultural nature, and what is it, your commitment and passion for a global career. And please take the opportunity when you write your Lauder essay to refer to all of these aspects of your career to date. You should also refer to how you think you can add value to the program. How do you think you can contribute to the entering class of students? And you should also refer to what is it that you're looking for in becoming a Lauder student. Overall, we're looking for fit. We're looking for a strong application across a number of dimensions. We don't focus our attention on just one dimension. We're looking for a well-rounded candidate for the program. So stay in touch with us. In the rest of this webinar, we're going to be taking questions from you. But before we go there, I'd like to introduce two of our current students. Here I have in the studio Medora Brown and Kartik Das, who are first going to introduce themselves, and then we're going to be taking questions from the audience. Medora?
Thank you, Mauro. So my name is Medora Brown. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Before Wharton and Lauder, I did a wide variety of things. I started my career at the U.S. Department of State, focusing on East Asian and Pacific affairs. And then after a couple different experiences in consulting firms in D.C. and New York, I ended up at a social enterprise in Nairobi, Kenya, improving access to sanitation in slums. Here at the Lauder Institute, I am a part of the Francophone Africa track.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Medora. Kartik?
Hi, Mauro. So I'm on the SAMINA track, which stands for South Asia, Middle East, North Africa. Prior to Wharton Lauder, I was in the government of India. I worked with the Ministry of Commerce on an Invest India program, which encouraged foreign direct investment into the country. Exciting times working with the public and the private sector. Prior to that, I was in consulting for 3 years, worked in the Middle East office as well as North Africa, and did a whole range of different projects across energy to telecom to media.
So as you can see, just two Lauder students, I think, show very clearly the variety of backgrounds that are represented among the students. And as you know, we take in about 70 to 75 students every year. So let me ask you this question, Medora. How did you learn about the Lauder program, and why did you decide that this was the right program for you?
So in my MBA search, I knew I wanted to do a dual degree program, and I was looking at pairing my MBA with an MPP or an MPA, but I was also applying from Nairobi and had this lifelong passion for Africa and for sort of development challenges. So I was looking for an international bent to my supplementary degree. And in talking to folks who had gone through business schools in the past, and I came across Lauder. And then also I had hosted Lauder students in Nairobi at my company, and I was incredibly impressed with the caliber and the engagement of those student groups. So it seemed like the perfect fit. And when I applied, I tried to convey that passion and that fit in terms of, as you mentioned, what I could contribute to the program, given especially the nascent nature of the Africa track. I believe it's only in its third year now, and so kind of through that, once I was accepted, it was an easy decision to decide to come here over my other options.
Okay, how about you, Kartik?
So for me, I guess, speaking to alumni really helps. People who were on the program inspired me to think about the program, and then I started investigating myself. So speaking to people on the current program and also the admissions office and getting a sense of what the program was about and why it was for me, I think it appealed to me for a couple of reasons. The first is I was very passionate about the public and the private sector, and I think Lauder does a great job of blending both. Learning a bit about public policy, international development is something that's very close to my heart, and I always wanted to keep that up. And the second thing was just the power of the network. I felt that I got a sense of great community when I was at Lauder from the conversations that I had, and I wanted to be part of that journey as I went along.
Okay, so Kartik, let me stay with you for a moment. What do you think, you're now a second-year student,
Yes.
so you've been on the program for a year and a half now. What do you think you have gained from the Lauder program that perhaps you wouldn't have been able to obtain had you decided just to pursue the Wharton MBA?
For sure. I think Lauder adds a lot of different dimensions to your experience at Wharton. I think firstly, I mentioned this before, I think the power of the Alumni Connect. There's a strong sense of that passionate Lauder community who can support you throughout your career options and, just looking at things when you want to graduate and see what works out for you in different industries. I think the fact that at Wharton and Lauder, I get a chance to pick certain extra modules at Lauder, which I wouldn't necessarily do at Wharton. So I'm taking a class this year with the Think Tank Institute taught by Jim McGann, which focuses on international institutions of development. And I've learned about things about the World Bank and the ADB and how think tanks actually work. And it gives me that side of policy and decision making as well. And the third aspect is just being part of a set of people who are very active in terms of the social setup. There are things about clubs that are very specific to Lauder, and I think that's a great sense of why Lauder adds so much more to my experience.
And in your case, Medora?
Kartik, very well articulated a lot of the benefits, but I would emphasize also that Wharton is just a massive school, and it is incredible to have a smaller community within it of people who are incredibly engaged, incredibly interested in global challenges, and incredibly passionate about solving big problems.
Okay, so Medora, let's continue digging into what makes Lauder and the Lauder experience so unique. What would you say has been so far, right, the highlight for you on the Lauder program?
So the highlight for me was last spring as part of the Lauder Intercultural Ventures program. I and about 18 other students went to Madagascar, where we looked at biodiversity in one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world, and the tension between maintaining biodiversity and encouraging economic development, which is hugely important for Madagascar, especially considered one of the poorest non-conflict country in the world, and looking at what it means to sustain and develop this incredible biosphere while also ensuring that people have a good quality of life. And we met with incredible NGOs and companies working towards this, as well as it got to experience the biodiversity firsthand with treks through the rainforest and hikes through incredible canyons, and it was a very interesting experience of and something I think Lauder does well, of experiential learning, both in the boardroom, so to speak, and out in the community.
Yeah, and explain to us, the Lauder Intercultural Ventures, you have to take 2 of them, right, before you graduate?
Correct.
And we actually cover the expenses,
yes.
right? Yes.
Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Yes. So there are they are available to do over 2 of your 4 breaks or holidays, winter break, spring break, over your 2 years at Lauder, and I believe this year there are about 10 different choices for students to pick from: Madagascar, Zanzibar, Thailand, Easter Island, the former Yugoslavia, Mongolia. So really, the sky's the limit, and there's a destination and a theme for everyone.
And which is going to be your second one then?
So then I'm doing so this spring I'll be going to the former Yugoslavia and going to Bosnia and Serbia and looking at the reconstruction of the countries post-conflict.
Okay, and Kartik, what has been the highlight for you?
I think my highlight, it's obvious as well. The Lauder Intercultural Venture was one of my highlights. I went to Israel for my LIV and had a sense of learning through cultural, economic, and social exposure to the actual region. And you also get a sense of how the region has evolved. So Israel, being a startup nation, is also now being a water superpower in a sense. And you get a sense of how that community is developing overall. I also think being with a set of students who share the similar passion to study the subject is also interesting. And my second highlight I'm going to add, Mauro, is my focused summer immersion. Having a chance to go to the Middle East and Asia and really travel and see how things are learned in a local context with the language was super helpful and added a lot of rich experiences to our journey.
Okay, so have you changed your career plans? A year and a half into the Lauder program, has Lauder opened up new horizons for you to explore career-wise?
Sure. So I did. I was at the World Bank for the summer. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience, and it was very diverse, different to what I'd done before. I worked on project financing and credit guarantees and long-term risk insurance for countries. So it is an exciting career path opportunity that I might explore full-time as well.
Yeah, and I should say that we have several dozen alums working at the World Bank, specifically in the International Finance Corporation, right? How about you, Medora? Has Lauder changed in any way or shaped your career plans for the future?
It most certainly has. I was in Nairobi before, and I spent the summer back in Nairobi working for a social impact focused consulting firm. And the sort of the brief anecdote that I love to tell is my first day of work, I was staffed on a Pan-African market study. And day 2, my project manager comes to me and says, Medora, do you speak Portuguese? And I said, no, I don't speak Portuguese. And he says, okay, do you speak French? And while my French was good before coming to Lauder, I have spent the last year in a French classroom, probably for the first time, well, definitely for the first time since I graduated from undergrad almost a decade ago. So I could very well, with confidence, say, yes, I have business proficiency and in French, and I can conduct interviews, do research, pore through policy documents about the chicken industry in French. And I could say that with confidence in a way that I couldn't have said it a year prior. And in addition to that, my exposure to the continent writ large through Lauder enabled me to be quite comfortable with working in a West African context, having not really spent much time there before.
Okay. So how would you characterize your classmates? How would you characterize the culture among the Lauder students?
Mauro, I think when you talked about Lauder love earlier, that's really the best way to describe it. We care deeply for one another, and 2 of our classmates, for example, are in a bodybuilding competition next week, and I think there are 40 of us going to watch them and cheer them on. And 2 weekends ago, we did a Lauder-wide retreat up in the Poconos, and we had Olympics, and one of the best parts was all of the Americans taught the international students how to make s'mores. Kartik, was that your first s'more experience?
It was my second s'more experience.
And it was just a wonderful, there's a wonderful community and camaraderie, in addition to, as I mentioned earlier, the passion and engagement and focus on incredibly important international issues.
So Kartik, are all Lauder students the same? Or do you perceive as there being diversity in terms of their...
There's a running theme, Mauro. Everyone's as diverse as possible. I think the joy to being a Lauder student is the fact that we have such rich backgrounds, having grown up and lived and worked in different countries. And I think that brings a lot of diversity of experiences to the table. When you have classroom discussions, I'm sure you see there's different views on every single topic. There's always the pros, cons, and seeing how people bring their perspective from that culture makes a big difference. I think also the fact that everyone's grown up learning about different things in a different setting and bringing that knowledge to the U.S. Brings for a very good experience.
Okay. So you are pursuing 2 degrees at the same time. This is a joint degree program.
Yes.
Hopefully you will graduate with both degrees in a few months. Has it been difficult to manage your time?
I'd say initially you would have to juggle your calendar. You do know you have expectations going into the program, but being a Lauder student, you're well equipped with balancing many things, whether it's social commitments or academic commitments. And I think you're very well aware as to what you could do to plan things well. And so the program's very well meshed. You have a very set curriculum that you can pick at a certain time. You have dates that are allocated for certain classes, and you can plan ahead. And I think Lauder students do a very good job at balancing both hats all the time with the assignments that come up or with travel that pops up. And I think the balance has been wonderful to work on.
Medora, what has been your experience on that? In that respect?
So my grandmother had 6 children, and when asked, how do you manage 6 children, she says, you have 1 child, it takes up all your time. You have 6 children, they take up all your time. So, you might as well have 6. And while I can't speak to children, I think doing a dual degree is similar. One of the luxuries of being a full-time student is that this is your job. And whether you're pursuing 1 degree or 2, whether you are involved in planning conferences or running student government or whatever, there are 24 usable hours in every day, and it's dependent on you on how to use that and make the most of it. And I would say that the Lauder Institute and Wharton in general rewards people who put time into it and you very much get out of it what you put in.
So it's perfectly manageable. That's what you're telling us.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. One last question before we go to the audience, which is, Medora, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who perhaps is listening to us now who's thinking about applying for the Lauder program? What kind of advice would you give him or her?
My one piece of advice is, again, echoing what we talked about earlier, is talk to current students, talk to alumni, figure out what really makes this program so special, which is very much the people. And I've heard from some perspectives or some applicants, people in business school are really busy, I don't want to impose. You're hard-pressed to find a Lauder student or Lauder alum who isn't incredibly excited to talk about Lauder and to share their experiences and share their love of the program. And so I would very much recommend that the people listening today reach out to the admissions office, and they can put you in touch with current students, current alum, and really to get a sense of a wide variety of experiences.
Okay, Kartik?
I would echo the same thoughts. I think get to know why Lauder is for you. So speak to people, alumni on the program. And also I'd say, explore a bit more on the detailed website. We have updates that we keep posting about. And I think getting a sense of following the Lauder community through different social media gives you a sense of what Lauder is about. And hopefully, like Medora said, ping us for any questions. We're happy to help.
Yeah, would you advise folks who are thinking about applying to visit campus?
I would say yes. It's very helpful. I did that. I wanted to get a sense of why the campus was for me, and then also visited Lauder and had a few chats here. I would say yes. If you can get a chance to really explore the university, you should do so.
And of course, current Lauder students are always willing to host.
Yes,
visitors, right?
Gladly willing to host.
Kartik has a very comfortable couch.
My flatmate is also Lauder, so we are very happy to welcome you. Open arms.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's now turn our attention to the audience and see what kinds of questions they have. So the first one here is, I'm going to read the question. What are the main differences between the global program, on the one hand, and the 5 programs of regional concentrations that we have right now? Please elaborate on global at length, including summer immersion locations, etc. So let me answer that one relatively quickly. The global program is for students who already have proficiency in at least one language besides English. By proficiency, we mean a superior on the OPI, right? Every year we have 10 to 12 wonderful students who decide to pursue the global program. What they do is different than those in programs of regional concentration like Europe or Samina, like in Kartik's case, or Africa, which is that they no longer have to undertake language training here at Lauder. So instead of taking language classes during the 4 semesters on campus, what they do is they take classes that are specifically designed for the global program, which are also some of them open to students in the regional programs. Now, those in the regional programs, both during summer immersion and during the 4 semesters, they have to take language classes until they reach the superior on the OPI for their target language. And beyond that point, they can decide whether they want to continue with language training, or perhaps they can, instead of doing that, once they reach superior, they can take electives. So in terms of, there's a sub-question here within the question which had to do with summer immersion locations. So they change from year to year. But the global program starts in the United States, actually. So they traveled, this last year, they traveled to Utah and to South Carolina and met with alums and with entrepreneurs and with policymakers to learn about how different parts of the United States actually try to connect themselves with the global economy so that businesses can prosper. And then they travel to Asia, 3 or 4 locations in Asia, and then on to Africa, and then finally Europe and back here to the United States. But let me emphasize that every year we change locations depending on new opportunities that arise, or depending also on feedback that we receive from previous years. Now there's a second question here for Medora, which asks, can you speak or can you say a few words about your travel commitments, over the last year and a half, and especially once the Wharton MBA begins, meaning in the month of August, right? So during the first 3 months of the program, you're only a Lauder student, right? But then in August, you start taking MBA classes. So how can you combine then, how can you manage your time so that you can both travel for the Lauder program and at the same time fulfill your commitments in terms of the Wharton MBA?
Thanks, Mauro. So, in terms of the travel for Lauder, it is fairly manageable. As I mentioned, the LIVs happen over breaks. And then the other large travel component is for our thesis, which is termed the Global Knowledge Lab. We do have a travel budget, which needs to be used, I believe, before November of your second year. So most students do take time over the summer to use it. And since I did 2 summer internships, I was actually unable to use my GKL travel budget over the summer. But that would be the only really conflict that I had, which wasn't really Wharton related. But in terms of other balancing things. The other travel opportunities available through Wharton, including global modular courses, which are 4 to 5 day international trips. Mauro leads 2 during the year, and then GIP's global immersion programs, which are usually longer trips over these breaks. It does mean that you do have to often. There's a trade-off between Wharton travel opportunities and Lauder travel opportunities. But for those students who want to do these other Lauder or these other Wharton programs, it is quite manageable. There are 4 breaks and throughout your 2 years, and Lauder requires you to travel for 2 of them. But then there are opportunities to do leadership ventures or academic work or travel with friends, etc. The rest of the time.
For Wharton, yeah. Now there's a question here that I'd like to answer, which is, does the Lauder Institute prefer candidates with some experience in the public sector? Well, you just heard from both Kartik and Medora, both of them have experience in non-business settings, right, strictly speaking. But I would say that more than half of the students on the Lauder program actually have had most of the job experiences in businesses, for-profit businesses. Some of them on the side have also had experience in social enterprises and NGOs. So what I would say is that we welcome applications from people with diverse backgrounds and diverse job experiences. We actually want to put together a class that reflects that diversity. And so while everyone here on the program, of course, is interested in pursuing a career in business one way or another, many do have experience in the public sector as well. And I think it is enriching to everyone that we actually bring in students with those backgrounds. Now, Kartik, there's a 4th question, and this one is addressed to you. Can you talk more about the career support offered by the Lauder Institute as distinct from the career support provided by Wharton?
Sure, Mauro. There's incredible support. So firstly, we have a dedicated career services officer. So we have Kim Conroy, who actually works directly with Wharton Lauder students, and she helps us, navigate through the career search and really connects us with everyone in the Lauder alumni network. We have weekly calls with Lauder alum where we ask specific direct questions to them and get a lot of support from them throughout our hunt in the career process. I think also we have a lot of strong visiting faculty. Joseph Westfall being one of them. And they really help for people who, let's say, are interested in the public sector or different types of areas of expertise. You also get the chance to maybe travel with them on specific career treks. And so there's that extra support. And the third, I would say, is just the power of the Lauder network itself. So your peers who will be with you are also career service officers who will be helping case you if you're in a consulting program or, help you with managing your career options for interviews and connecting with people in the setup for your career.
Yeah, exactly. So all other students have access to Wharton Career Services, but above and beyond that, we do have our own resources. And of course, we emphasize international opportunities for internships and full-time jobs. And I would also like to add that if a Lauder student secures an internship at a company or organization that cannot pay, we actually pay. We provide a stipend and we provide for travel expenses for that student. Last summer, I believe 11 students, Lauder students, took advantage of this program. Next question is for Medora. Please elaborate on your summer immersion and talk specifically about where you went and what you did in a few minutes, okay? Because I know you could talk about it for hours, right?
Sure. So as part of the Africa track, we, as you mentioned, did 5 weeks of French language immersion and then 3 of cultural immersion. So the 5 weeks of language immersion were split between Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Morocco. And then cultural immersion was Nigeria, Kenya, and then South Africa. And immersion is structured to again, offer, as I mentioned during my discussion of the LIV, a good balance of classroom time and experiential learning, and whether that is meeting with NGOs, companies. We met with a lot of different sort of collectives. Whether that is going to Leopold Senghor's house in Dakar, or a phenomenal cultural evening in Lagos, we really got a sense of, in sort of mini week-long or 10-day-long chunks, longer during when we spent about a month in Dakar, but really understanding both the history of the place we were through classroom opportunities, and better understanding the politics and the economics, but then also kind of rolling up our sleeves and getting our hands dirty, so to speak, talking to people on the ground, and experiencing what life is really like. And there's an immense diversity of experiences, and we really covered, only 6 of the 54 countries in Africa, but a phenomenal sample of the range of African experiences.
Now, you had lived and worked in Africa prior to joining the Lauder program, so was the summer immersion redundant in any way for somebody like yourself?
Of the countries that we visited, I had been to 3, but so 3 were completely new for me. I had never been to Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, or Nigeria before, and while it was wonderful to be able to show my new classmates Nairobi as my home, right. And Kartik had a similar experience when he was taking his classmates through India, but for the rest of it, it was incredibly new and exciting. And even in places, we spent time in Morocco, we spent time in Casablanca. I had not really spent much time in Casablanca 20 plus years. And similarly, in South Africa, we went to Pretoria, where I had never had an opportunity to go before, and went to Robben Island, and had a lot of different experiences that were incredibly novel for me.
Okay, Kartik.
Yes.
This question is about interviewing.
Sure.
Interviews. So could you tell us a little bit about your Lauder interview and also the Wharton interview, which now is a team-based or is a collective or group interview? Do you have any tips?
Absolutely. So the Lauder interview, it's important to understand, is distinct and it's separate to the Wharton interview. So the Lauder interview is a one-on-one, usually with an admissions officer, could be a student admissions officer or someone from the admissions team at Lauder. And it's really a deep dive on why Lauder appeals to you. And so they get to know more about your experiences, your work, and why the program appeals to you per se. So it's a bit more of a detailed one-on-one. Lasts about 25 to 30 minutes. The Wharton experience is a different one. So you have a team-based discussion, which is typically a prompt that you were given before, and you have to prepare on that topic. Usually you have a minute to pitch the idea with 6 or 7 other team members who are randomly assigned to you at the team-based discussion, and you have a sense of directing the conversation along the way, and you come up at the end with some sort of analysis and solution and come up with an idea. And so the goal of the team-based discussion is to really get a sense of how you as a person work with other people, how you listen, how you direct, how you manage time, how you can communicate effectively. And it's a good sense of, it's a preview to Wharton life, because a lot of Wharton is about teamwork and discussions, and you work with your learning teams and present a lot of time. So I think it's a good sense of a reflection of what your Wharton experiences could be like.
Okay, Medora, Opi testing. So you took the OPI in French,
yes.
I take it, during the application process. How did you prepare for it? And did you find the experience was a good one? Perhaps you can first start by describing what happens during the OPI, and then tell us about
Sure.
how you prepare for it.
So the OPI is a phone call, and it's a phone recorded conversation with you and a tester who is usually a native speaker of that language. And it is mostly a conversation. You introduce yourself, they pick up on themes, and then sort of dive deeper. There's sometimes, but not always, also a role-playing component that usually is meant to put you in a slightly uncomfortable situation where you have to think on your feet in that language. And the OPI prioritizes the ability to speak in, or sort of to express slightly more abstract ideas and things a little bit more sophisticated than, my name is Medora, I am hungry, and, I would like a Coca-Cola or something. Preparing for the OPI was definitely a stretch experience for me. When I took the test in September of 2016, I hadn't been in a French language classroom in 6 years, and I had not used French professionally. And so when I decided to apply to Lauder, and I realized that there would be a testing component, I went on Duolingo and started making sure that I was comfortable in both the written and oral components. And Duolingo is great for that. And then I had 3 French friends in Nairobi that just I happened to have these folks, and I insisted that they only speak to me in French until I passed my OPI, and so that sort of level of mini immersion was necessary for me to feel comfortable in passing the OPI, but it completely depends on your level of proficiency and comfort going into it. But I would highly recommend going on the Lauder website, looking at the OPI requirements, and I think there's a link to the OPI website as well. There are some great audio files, et cetera, for more information for people looking to prepare.
So now there's a question for me addressed to me, which is what are some of the advantages of doing the Lauder program in addition to Wharton with regard to career plans? Well, let me first say that the Lauder program, as both Medora and Kartik have been saying, is for everybody or everyone who is passionate about global issues and about doing business or working in different parts of the world. You will join a community of like-minded people in the sense that they're all passionate about that, but then a very diverse community, right, with experiences in many different kinds of parts of the world. So I think the Lauder program adds value above and beyond Wharton, especially in terms of depth, right? So there's no other comparable business program anywhere in the world at the graduate level that gives you as much depth in a particular region or about the global business landscape as a whole as the Lauder program, right? We are unique. Once again, because we offer a lot of immersion opportunities for students, because we have a dedicated faculty that will help you understand some of the intricacies of doing business in different parts of the world. And also, of course, because you will learn from your classmates. You're going to be spending a lot of time with Wharton students, to be sure, but you're also going to be spending quite a bit of time with Lauder students every evening, right? During immersion, on campus, off campus. So you're going to be learning from them. And I think that will be very important for your future career. And as Kartik was mentioning earlier, the Lauder network. I can guarantee to you that if you call or if you email one of the 2,000 Lauder alums, they will reply, right? They always reply. And that is something that, it's only possible when you have a small, closely knit community, right? That includes both current students and graduates. So I think that's how, the Lauder experience adds value career-wise above and beyond Wharton. And in fact, many of our students secure internships or full-time jobs through a Lauder alum in various parts of the world. So that, I think, is also an important aspect of the program to take into consideration. Now, Kartik, there's a question for you here. How does your Wharton major fit with Lauder? Can you choose any major? They're actually called
majors.
Majors at Wharton as a Lauder student. Can you choose anything?
So the short answer is yes. You're open to choose any major you want to. So the major I'm focusing on this year is business economics and public policy, which is again a unique Wharton major. But as a Lauder student, I have the flexibility to choose anything. Looking at my classmates, there are people who are focusing on strategic management, business analytics, finance. So it's as diverse as possible, and it depends on what you want to focus on. So I'd say the plate is wide open for you to decide. Do focus a bit more on what you think could add more value to your academics and then your career options. I think that's important when you choose a major. So I was a bit flexible in my first year, and then I started zeroing in as I started picking electives in my focused major. I even debated doing 2 majors, in fact. So there's a lot of flexibility in the program, and I think Wharton truly supports that Lauder experience.
Absolutely. And let me emphasize that as a Lauder student, you're also a Wharton student. So you have all of the rights and all of the obligations of any other Wharton student. The only constraint is that as part of the joint degree program, you have to take 4 credit units, 4 classes at Wharton that have or include international content. Because those 4 classes that are electives are supposed to count for both the Wharton MBA and the MA from the Lauder Institute. So that's really the only constraint. Other than that, you can participate in any club, you can participate in any activity at Wharton, and you can also take pretty much any class at Wharton, and as Kartik just mentioned, major in any of the dozen or so majors that the Wharton School offers.
Yeah. In
Kartik?
fact, I would just add that, just to supplement that, you can also pick additional subjects from other institutions, so which is a great benefit for the Wharton Lauder student. So I, for instance, have taken full advantage by picking a few from the School of Arts and Sciences, from the School of Social and Public Policy. So there's an added advantage to actually get more options in your repertoire.
Okay, Medora. What is the best thing about that comes to mind when you're thinking about doing this joint degree program combining the Wharton MBA and the Lauder MA? And what has been the biggest challenge? So the best thing, right, in your experience over the last 15 months or so, and what has been the greatest challenge?
Mauro, I'm starting to sound like a broken record here. But hands down, the best thing is the community. And Kartik mentioned that sort of everyone is as diverse as possible, and I think that is true in terms of backgrounds, nationalities, interests, passions, and that is most certainly the Lauder love is very much real, and it is incredible to have just a built-in community pretty much from day one, or day -90, I suppose.
How about the biggest challenge?
And the biggest challenge, I think, is may go hand in hand actually with this element of diversity. For me, I was the only woman in the Africa track during summer immersion, and there were 6 of us from 6 different nationalities, and with various backgrounds. And I think, to be perfectly honest, the biggest challenge was figuring out how to navigate all our varied interests during summer immersion and beyond, and our various ways of presenting ourselves and bringing ourselves to the table. And one of the great things about Lauder is that people are interested in such a wide variety of things, but when the rubber hits the road and you have to get in a van to go somewhere, that can be a bit of a challenge.
Yes, and I should note that more than 40% of the first year class this year, the one after your class, are women, and that a little bit more than 25% are people of color in that class. So it's actually very diverse, also from an ethnic or socio-demographic point of view. Kartik, your highlight, the best thing, and then also the biggest challenge.
So I think, Mauro, the highlight has been the people, and I think part of that is also traveling with the people you love. So whether it's a Lauder intercultural venture or a Columbia trek, or going on a GKL Global Knowledge Lab project with a set of dedicated but passionate teammates is incredible. And I think spending that time with a set of people who really care about you and paying it forward is key, and it's been a highlight. I think a challenge comes with because there's so much to do here, even on the social commitment front, it's a question of what you really want to zero in on and focusing on a few things that make sense to you. And I think when you first come in, you tend to sign up a lot for extracurricular clubs. And I think managing to set expectations early on with how to juggle things on your schedule, especially on the non-academic front, could be one of the challenges you have to just deal with.
Okay, there's one last question that I'd like to answer, and it involves financial aid. So the question is, what are the opportunities in terms of financial aid for Lauder students? Do we offer fellowships for both Lauder and Wharton? So keep in mind that the admissions decision is joint between Wharton and the Lauder Institute. So the two admission teams meet together and they make a decision. And financial aid is based on merit for both Wharton and Lauder. And we offer, so a Lauder student can get financial aid from the Wharton School towards the MBA, and he or she can also get financial aid towards the MA, but also towards the MBA from the Lauder Institute, right? So the financial aid budgets are separate, but the Lauder Institute, so Lauder students can get financial aid from Wharton, and of course you should apply for that as well. But we also have, a very large budget for financial aid that we can allocate towards covering your Lauder tuition and also your Wharton tuition. Just to give you a sense, as we speak right now, virtually every student on the program has received some form of financial aid, of non-loan financial aid from the Lauder Institute. So I encourage all of you to ask our admissions team about the financial aid opportunities available, and you should let us know exactly, what your expectations are on that front. So I'd like to bring this webinar to an end here, first by thanking both Medora and Kartik for being here with us. And I'd also like to tell our audience that we will be posting this recording of this webinar on our website. And I do encourage you to visit our website. There's a wealth of information over there about the program. And of course, if you have any questions whatsoever about the admissions process, you can contact our admissions team at the following email address. It's called lauderinfo, one word, at wharton.upenn.edu. And you can also find my email online very easily if you Google my name or you go to our website. And I welcome also your questions over email. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, I'm expecting you to apply for the Lauder program, and I hope to see you in the coming month of May. Thank you so much.